Let's be honest. When I say Liberal Democrats, what comes to mind? From reading the comments on this channel, I'm guessing it's this and probably this. Broken promises, a disastrous coalition. I know what people say about us, that we're the punchline of British politics. And part of you is not wrong to think that, because that story is a huge part of our modern identity. But what if I told you that during the same infamous coalition, we pushed through a policy that by 2014 had lifted around 2.7 million low-paid workers out of paying income tax altogether? Or that we kick-started the first dedicated green investment bank in the world? What if I told you we introduced a multi-billion pound fund to help the most disadvantaged kids in the country? The story you think you know isn't the whole story, and the caricature of us as well-meaning idealists who sold our souls for a taste of power misses the surprising reality of what we actually achieved. And today, I want to talk about the truth about 3 of those achievements, and why our reputation is still so defined by our failure, and what our party is fighting for now. To get the real picture, we have to go back to 2010. The financial crisis had blown a hole in the UK's finances, and a hung parliament forced the first coalition government in 65 years. For us, it was a golden ticket to implement our policies, but it came at a staggering political cost. Teaming up with the Conservatives was immediately toxic for many of our voters, and indeed our members. Our support plummeted almost overnight, and one issue above all others came to symbolise this betrayal: tuition fees. Before the election, our MPs had signed a pledge to vote against any fee increase. In government, facing a different economic reality, we U-turned, voting to raise the cap to £9,000 a year. It was a catastrophic political mistake that has haunted us ever since, and for which the then leader Nick Clegg later publicly apologised. But while everyone was focused on that broken promise, a number of genuinely transformative Liberal Democrat policies were being put into action, often completely under the radar. So let's look at 3 major policies of ours that were surprisingly successful but got buried by the headlines. Firstly, and most significantly, was the radical change to income tax. The flagship promise on the front of our 2010 manifesto was to raise the personal tax-free allowance to £10,000. It was a simple, powerful idea designed to give a major tax cut to low and middle income earners. Before the coalition, you started paying income tax on every pound you earned over £6,500. We argued that this was fundamentally unfair. As the junior partner in government, we made this our key economic demand. And we got it. We got it. Over the course of the Parliament, the threshold was raised year after year after year, hitting the £10,000 target by 2014. This wasn't a minor tweak. It was a huge change. By the end of the coalition, it resulted in about 2.7 million of the lowest paid workers being lifted out of paying income tax entirely, and millions more got a substantial tax cut. It was a policy that directly put money into people's pockets, but it was almost completely drowned out by the noise of austerity and the tuition fee pledge. Secondly, we forced the creation of the Green Investment Bank. Long before climate change was at the absolute top of the agenda, we had been pushing for a state-backed bank to fund green infrastructure. In coalition, we made that happen. Our business secretary, Vince Cable, championed its formation, and it launched into 2012 as the world's first publicly funded institution of its type, capitalised with an initial £3 billion of government money. Its mission was to de-risk green projects like offshore wind farms and energy-efficient tech by providing initial investments that would attract much larger sums from the private sector. And it worked! By 2017, it had backed over 100 projects and mobilised over £8 billion in private capital. It was a pioneering piece of our policy that was controversially privatised in 2017 and rebranded as the Green Investment Group. But again, in the daily drama of coalition politics, it barely made a dent in the public consciousness. Thirdly, there was the Pupil Premium. This was a policy born from our core belief that your background shouldn't dictate your future. And the idea was simple. For every disadvantaged child a school had, it would receive extra funding, a premium, to close the attainment gap. This meant more money for one-on-one tuition, breakfast clubs or specialist support targeted at the kids who needed it the most. We made this a non-negotiable part of our coalition agreement. By the 2015-16 financial year, the funding for it was worth about £2.5 billion. Studies showed the policy successfully directed more funding to schools with the poorest intake. Now, while its overall impact on closing the national attainment gap has been debated, with reports from bodies like Ofsted offering a mixed picture, the Pupil Premium fundamentally changed how schools were funded, forcing the system to focus on its most vulnerable students. Yet, like the tax cuts and the Green Bank, this major social reform was overshadowed. So if all that's true, why is our reputation still so defined by the coalition's failures? Well, the answer tells you a lot about the brutal reality of the UK's political system, especially for a third party. The nature of compromise is that in a coalition, the junior partner often gets blamed for all the unpopular decisions, but rarely gets credit for the good things. We blocked or softened many Conservative proposals on things like workers' rights and civil liberties, but you can't really campaign on what didn't happen. Voters only see what did happen, and what they saw was a government that we were part of making deep cuts to public services. And for many who'd voted for us as an anti-Conservative protest, this was an unforgivable betrayal. Secondly, the power of a single toxic story. The tuition fees U-turn wasn't just a broken promise. It was a story that was a simple, emotional and easy to understand. It became a symbol for every single compromise we made. It's a lot harder to explain the complex benefits of a green investment bank than it is to show a clip of a politician promising one thing and doing another. In the fight for public perception, the simple negative story almost always wins. Finally, and more importantly, the electoral system. First past the post is notoriously brutal for third parties. It's why it's labelled as a two-party system. In 2015, we paid the ultimate price for our time in government, losing 49 of our 57 MPs. The wipeout was so severe it cemented a perception of total failure. It didn't matter that we'd implemented key parts of our manifesto. The electoral map said we'd been utterly rejected. And that became the final word of our legacy. So where does that leave us today? After the trauma of the coalition and the wilderness years that followed, we have rebuilt. Following the 2024 general election, we are once again the third largest party in the House of Commons with a record 72 of our MPs. Our modern platform is a direct evolution of our historical values, sharpened by our experiences. Our core identity is now built around a fair deal. This translates into several key areas. Firstly is the economy and public services. Echoing our push on the personal allowance, our 2024 manifesto included major spending commitments for health and social care. We've pledged to recruit 8,000 more GPs and give everyone the right to see a GP within 7 days or 24 hours if urgent. We also want to guarantee that elderly people and those with long-term conditions have access to a named GP. Second is the environment. The Green Investment Bank wasn't a one-off. Our current plans are ambitious, calling for an industrial strategy to drive the green transition and a pledge to reach net zero emissions by 2045, 5 years ahead of the national target. And thirdly, the issue that has defined us the most since 2016, Europe. As the UK's most consistently pro-European party, we were staunchly opposed to Brexit. Our current strategy is more patient, advocating for repairing the UK's relationship with Europe step by step, with the ultimate goal of rejoining the single market. Finally, and perhaps most crucially, is our fight to fix Britain's broken politics. Having been burned so badly by the political system, it's no surprise that constitutional reform is still in our DNA. We continue to campaign for proportional representation, arguing the current system creates adversarial politics and leaves millions of voters ignored. This belief in dispersing power also extends to protecting civil liberties and human rights, a thread that runs right back to our campaign to scrap ID cards before and during the coalition years. Our story is a lesson in the complexity of modern politics. It's a story of idealism crashing against the rocks of reality. The common narrative of broken promises and political disaster isn't wrong, but it's dangerously incomplete. It misses the successful policies on tax, the environment and education that has had a genuine impact. It ignores the constitutional institutional constraints that punish parties like ours and reward simple, negative attacks over nuanced policy discussions. The party we are today was forged by that fire. We're still fighting for our long-held values of liberty and community, but with the scars and experience of having been at the heart of power. We are no longer just a party of protest, but a party that knows what it's like to govern and has a clear vision for the future. Has this changed your view of us? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want more deep dives that challenge what you think you know about UK politics, make sure to subscribe. So, what do you think? Let us know in the comments below or on our social media channels, and if you've enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future updates and content. Thanks for watching.